Hello, and thank you for joining us here for Cherry Blossom Home Edition. The Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival takes place every year, the last weekend of April, here in Marshfield, Missouri. And it's our mission to preserve American history and to present it in a unique and interesting way. This year, due to the pandemic, we have moved our festival online and hope that you will enjoy the interviews and panels that we have in store for you. What an honor it is to have Grammy Award-winning bluegrass artist Rhonda Vincent with us today for Cherry Blossom Home Edition. It's been several years since we've had the pleasure of welcoming Rhonda to the Cherry Blossom Festival, but she has appeared in Marshfield since she received a star on the Walk of Fame. Yeah. So, Rhonda, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And, of course, you're almost neighbors to us now.
I know. How awesome is that? I'm at the Lake of the Ozarks. So
That's right.
I've gone through Marshfield actually several times on my way usually to Branson or headed south somewhere.
Well, and I've been watching your fishing videos. Are you getting used to the lake?
Oh, yes. You know what? I'm so glad we just moved here last September. So what a perfect place to move to during this time. You don't really feel like you're isolated. There's so many, you can go out to the lake or walk around. It's not like you have to just stay in one place.
That's true. And, I really want to emphasize to those who are listening or watching that you have strong Missouri roots. So really, you're not that far away from home where you began.
Right. No, I mean, I'm from Missouri. I've never moved from Missouri. And we've been like in Greentop is where I grew up, then Kirksville, all of my married life until we moved to here. So, I mean, we have a place in Nashville, but if I come home, I'm coming home to Missouri.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen, I just want to do conversation style, talking about your career, but I really want to emphasize the excitement. I know everybody that's connected to you through the music world and your fans worldwide are just thrilled to death with the announcement of your Opry membership. How exciting.
Talk about a shock, yes.
I love the look on your face when Jeannie Seely surprised you on the stage. Can you tell us about that night? Well,
I mean, I pretty much had brought myself to a place of peace that I would never be an Opry member, just that I was fortunate to get to play it quite often. So February 28th of 2020 was my 215th performance on the Opry. And to me, it was just like any other time that I had been on the Opry. So it didn't seem like it was any different. And people say, did you know? It's like, could you not tell by my face? I had no idea. I was in complete shock. In fact, when she said it, it's like, I'm looking her into the face and she's really getting choked up because she said, that's one of the greatest things about being an Opry member is getting to invite someone else. And that hasn't happened very many times for her. And she knew how important it was to me. So when she said it, I'm looking at her and like, are you serious? Because I couldn't really grasp that, was that wishful thinking on my part, or did she just really ask me to be a member of the Grand Alliance? So it was true. And
well,
then
you could tell
oh my goodness, thank you, Lord.
You could tell the evolutions, like as it began to sink in with you of what she had said to you.
You could see it as the sequence.
You could, yeah.
Yes.
I loved it. I could only imagine. And then as it sank in, as the night went on, I can only imagine you were just thrilled to death.
Oh, I'm so glad that I had already sang my songs. And then I got to join Connie Smith, the Whites, and Jeannie for a song afterwards. In fact, that's what she had called me and said, hey, I've got an idea. Would you come out and sing those memories with the Whites and Connie? Would you come out and do that? And it's like, well, sure. So that was her ploy for me to be hanging around. She said, I'm going to come out and ask you about, because I recorded a song that she wrote along with Bobby Tomberlin and Aaron Enderlin. And so, I mean, she said, when are you going to finish that album? I said, well, maybe you should give me some other songs so I can get it completed. It just didn't seem like a different night. The crazy thing is there are so many people that had they felt an intuition about it that night. And it's like, but they didn't say anything to me about it. the one that is very surprising is Jim Ed Brown's wife, Becky, because she never comes to the Opry, rarely, ever, ever. And she said she told her daughter Kim, she goes, I need to be at the Opry tonight. I think they're going to ask Ron to be a member. So she was there, and it was important to her. She had this intuition. There were people that drove in from Kentucky that gave me the roses. They too, they said, we think this is going to be the night. Let's stop and get her some roses. It's like, how in the world? I had many people that felt that.
Well, that almost gives you goosebumps.
I know.
How exciting is that?
Right.
Well, can you share with us, you mentioned the number of times that you'd appeared upon the Opry. Can you go back and talk about your first night at the Opry?
Oh, the first time I remember singing like a solo, I went to work for Jim Ed Brown after doing his show, You Can Be a Star. And that was in 1985, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that was my first night on there. And we, I was playing instruments and singing with him. So he was the host of the segment. And we did our segment. And as we're standing there, he introduced the next artist. As we're standing there, he said, you're going to do the next song. What are you going to do? And it's the same type of thing. It's like, what, this is one of the first times I've ever really been away from my parents as far as performing, because I grew up in Missouri performing with my parents for years and years. Yeah. And so it's like, what? I'm going to sing this song. So there's been a lot of surprises on the Opry, but sure. I remember my knees were knocking by that time. When you're backing up someone else, there isn't that pressure or that, the nervousness, I think. But when I knew I was going to sing, the nerves took over. And I'm so glad I didn't know, because I don't think I could have made it through my song the night that Jeannie asked me to be a member had I known. And that's, Gene Watson told me after they had invited me. First, he said, you didn't let me be a new member for very long. I remember hearing him when Vince Gill invited him to be a member. And then he said, hey, I want you to sing Farewell Party. He said, that's your emotions are they're so soaring. You're so emotional. It would be very difficult to do that. But he said, I had to.
Oh, wow. Well, I just think that's amazing. Let's talk about Jim Ed Brown. One of the last times that you and I were together, we had lunch after Jim Ed Brown's funeral at the barbecue place. I believe maybe your daughter was working there. Talk about Jim Ed Brown and your friendship. And you were part of his service. What a touching service that was. You want to talk about Jim Ed? Oh, my
goodness. He was such a mentor to me. I mean, to give me the opportunities that he did to, hire me. I'm a girl from Missouri that's with my parents on this TV show. He literally went back and talked to my parents while I'm out on there, like, hey, we're singing harmony and you're trying to talk to us. And he goes, no, I want to hire that girl. So just immediately hiring me. He also gave me this advice. Some I didn't heed. And I'm kind of glad in a way, because he told me that I needed to live in Nashville. Now, that's one thing that I didn't do. The day that I came back to Missouri, I was with him for 6 months. And, he spent probably 2 hours. He said, I want you to come over to my office. And we sat there and he goes, listen, you need to be in Nashville. He said, you're going to be a star and you need to be here, and for opportunity's sake. And I'm sure that I missed a lot of opportunities because of that, but my heart was in Missouri and I love living here. And, anyway, I ended up moving back, but through the years, so supportive. Each time I would do the Opry, he would come in the dressing room. We'd sing a song together. He loved to jam, he loved to sing, but just a wonderful friend and a wonderful mentor.
Well, Jim Ed and both of his sisters, Maxine and Bonnie, had such a special relationship with the Cherry Blossom Festival, and we miss all three of them, of course. I know you miss that friendship too. Well, let's talk about, you keep mentioning about growing up singing with your parents. I know you got started at a very early age playing with your dad, and with your grandpa, maybe. Was he a musician as well? Am I correct? Yeah.
Well, when I was 5, music is traced back 5 generations of the Vincent family. So they were playing music long. I'm even hearing, talking to relatives, I had no idea that my Aunt Irene, she's now, was she 88? And she called me a couple of weeks ago and she goes, I used to sing with your dad and your grandpa. had no idea that so they were playing long before I was ever thought of. And I started singing when I was 3 on the way to a birthday party. Mom and Dad said we were headed to Iowa, and they were singing happy birthday in the car, and I joined in harmony. And they said we got such a kick out of it that they just sang it all the way there. And every time I would come in on the harmony part. So obviously at that point, I joined our musical family. At 5, we had a television show up in what was out of Ottumwa, Iowa at the time, KTVO television, which is now I think in Kirksville. But we had a TV show. So that's the first documentation. I was singing. We had the TV show. We had a radio show on KIRX out of Kirksville, and we made our first recording. We went to Kansas City, which was probably the very first time that I had ever been in the big city. I can remember looking up and thinking that wall, it seemed like it was the full extent of a skyscraper at the time. I'm sure it's because I was so little. The ceiling probably, it felt like it was 2 football fields high. But, and I remember our family, you know, we're from a tiny town, Greentop, Missouri, and I don't think we'd ever been in the city before. And we got so lost, and that was way before, you know, this is 1967. So there wasn't any iPhones or, you know, you had to have a paper map. And here we were downtown. We got lost. We finally found the studio. I sang 2 songs on that. So that's the first documentation of my singing. But it was just it was a family group. When I was 6, my dad got me a snare drum, and I played the snares with a snare drum with a set of brushes. And that's probably because it was my grandpa Bill and my mom and dad and my aunts, uncle, and cousins and friends. You know, it was not only my family, but it was also Phil Baker, Boyd Halford, Al White, and Jack Heron. So there were other people involved. And we went around singing, and it was a wonderful way to grow up.
Probably a lot of late night jam sessions.
Well, it was every night. It was an every night jam session. So my dad picked me up from school each day. We played till dinner, and after dinner, friends came over. This was every night. I bet it was probably 7 days a week. Maybe not on Sunday nights because we went to church on Sunday night. And not Sunday morning, which is kind of odd, I guess. I didn't even know there was Sunday morning church until I guess I got married, and he's like, let's get ready for church. It's like, what do you mean? I was gone Sunday night because we were playing at someplace on the weekends, and we were never home on Sunday morning at a festival. But there was a jam session at my grandparents' house every night, and all these friends would come over. And I remember if there was somebody new that came through town, and they must have started talking. It's like, oh, what is there to do? Well, the only thing in town, because the street rolled up at 5 o'clock, as you can imagine. There was always music at the Vincent House. So, and everyone was welcome. People would stop in or bring their instrument. We met so many different people that would stop through there.
Well, I'm sure that's had a strong influence on you in music all these years. Now, was this your paternal grandparents or your maternal grandparents?
Yes, my paternal my dad's mom and dad, and then my great grandmother also. I had the benefit of, there was only a house between us. We lived on the south side, and one house between us, and then my grandmothers lived on the north side after my grandpa passed when I was in 4th grade. So it was my grandma Irma and my great grandma Ethel Suter. And so her husband passed, I think, in the first year of my grandmother's marriage. And she moved in with them in the year in which they got married and lived with her until she ended up going to the nursing home. She passed, I think she was like 95 or something like that. But I'm thinking these days, who would let after they've just got married, have their mother move in with them?
Well, exactly.
You know? So
but those strong roots, so much. Sure. Those strong roots, though, certainly give the answer of why your heart's in Missouri. Why you want to stay here. Well, that's probably true. Yeah, because I went to their house every day. I made a dozen trips every day to my grandma's house. I woke up, she'd always, and all of the parents would say now, because all of the cousins would meet at grandma's house each morning, grandma's, I guess. Yeah. And they would tell them, it's like, listen, this is not a restaurant. Everybody decide on something, and grandma's going to fix you breakfast. Well, as soon as our parents left, it's like, I want pancakes, I want eggs and bacon. Hey, grandma, will you fix me waffles? Or I want a cheeseburger. It was every morning they told them that. So, well, and your grandma probably ate that up.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I still love that. Call grandma, even I mean into my adult life, and when I was married, I would say, hey grandma, I'm headed up, coming up. Can you put me on a cheeseburger? She kept frozen hamburger patties in her freezer by the refrigerator, and people would call her and say, hey, I'm coming up, and she'd put that burger would be done or that cheeseburger when you arrived, and she knew how each
Wow.
person loved it. So
Wow.
well, my goodness, I'm going down memory lane, aren't I?
That's great. That's great. Now, so with music being such a strong tradition in your family, did the Sally Mountain band or the Sally Mountain show exist before you were born, or did it develop afterwards?
There were a lot of different configurations. I think it was early on when my dad was young. It was my uncles and my aunts probably,
Okay.
or his. I'm not mine, but his. You know, he was there with his uncles and his aunt, and then it kind of became my grandpa. Well, my mother started playing bass because my grandpa, he developed emphysema from working in the coal mines, and he couldn't play the bass anymore.
Yeah.
So she started playing bass. So I think it was just evolved each, you know, as one instrument was needed, or grandpa couldn't play it anymore. So, and then see it eventually, when my grandpa passed, it went down to the Sally Mountain Trio. It was my mom and dad and I, till my brother Darren came along, and then we were the Sally Mountain Show, and my brother Brian came along. So it was several, evolved in several different forms. But I think it wasn't until, I think that TV show is how it got the name the Sally Mountain Show. I want to say they at one time were called the Red River Valley Boys, or, you know, all these different river boys, some sort of names that they had. There was.
Where did the name Sally Mountain originate from? Is it a location?
Are you from Missouri?
Yeah.
Well, that's a geographic location. That's a geographic location, but not in the South. It's up in Schuyler County, up in northern Missouri.
Oh.
And that's from very near where my parents are from. It's the highest point up there. And now this is, I don't know, we'll have to go back on the history, and we'll have to look this up. And this should be on the internet if it's not. But Sally Mountain, there's a lady by the name of Sally Mosley. She lived at this highest point, so they called it Sally's Mountain. She ran some moonshine and what they called a bad house, if you know what I mean. And so she ran this on top of Sally's Mountain. At the bottom of that was a mining town, a booming mining town called Lick Skillet.
Oh.
And there was a family called the Skillets, and that was back when they had the feuds, and they said, we're going to go over there and lick the Skillets, because there was some sort of, you know, these are all fables. The most famous thing from that, and I've never heard it disputed, is the fiddle tune Sally Gooden. Because Sally Mosley that lived on there was an old time fiddler, and legend has it that she originated the tune Sally Gooden that we know today.
Well, that's interesting. And you're talking about the Skillet Lickers. Wasn't there a group in the Grand Ole Opry at one time, the Skillet Lickers and the Fruit Jar Drinkers?
Well, there was definitely the Fruit Jar Drinkers. There, you know what? There probably was. So that's probably a popular name that everybody adopted.
How interesting. Well,
Missouri
I know
history here.
You know, hey, you're giving a full scope here. So I know you're probably climbing the walls. You're so used to being on the road touring. Can you talk about any of your future tour dates? And of course, your website, RhondaVincent.com. People can go there to keep current with what is happening with your career.
That's right.
Yeah. Can you tell us about any dates?
Our first date is still June 5th. And that's in Ohio. And we keep thinking, because everything else has been postponed, like my family's festival in Queen City has been canceled. And so many dates. We have this one date left in June for June 5th. And he said, I think it's in Owensville, Ohio. And that guy says, as long as the governor opens up the state, that show will go on. So that's the first one that I know of, if you want to travel to Owensville, Ohio. And then beyond that, there are a few in July, but most of them are pushed back to September, October, November. And I'm thinking about this just because of the loss of revenue and loss of income, is hosting a Christmas tour of some sort.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, what can I do that would make up for this? And I'm thinking that, and the webinars, people are always asking about, hey, do you teach mandolin or do you do this? So I'm hosting on April the 28th at 7 p.m. I am hosting a beginning mandolin webinar. For those who said, man, a lot of people say they got a mandolin. They don't know the first thing about it. And this is just to get people, get your mandolin out and to learn. Let's hear some chords. You gotta start somewhere. And I'm going to give them some beginning tips on how to get started playing the mandolin.
Well, we know you're a multi-instrumentalist. Tell us about the instruments that you play and kind of how that all came about in your life.
Well, I mean, my dad played all the different instruments, so he would get us started on them. No, I mean, I play by ear. There's, not really any formal training, except for we played every single night. I started with the snare when I was 6. I went to the mandolin when I was 8 years old. And we played, here's some more history for you. We played in Marceline, Missouri. And do you know who that is the famous hometown of? You surely do.
Walt Disney. That's Walt Disney.
That's Walt Disney. That's right.
Yes, so, I got that one right.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. So in Marceline, this was back, well, I was 7. So we'll have to do the math on that. But, oh my goodness, my mandolin's falling. I'm going to need that for that mandolin webinar.
Yes, you are.
But the guy that had that show, he was called the Frontier Jamboree. His name was Buck Cody. My mom and dad and I played there, along with all kinds of people, husbands and wives. Well, there were so many people. I think his answer to economics, he was trying to cut down on costs. He decided anyone who didn't have an instrument didn't get paid. Like there would be a wife that come up to sing, or, and if you did that, and I was 7, and I would come up to sing, well, I'm not paying those people. You have to play an instrument. So my dad said, here's the mandolin, here's G, C, and D, and you're going to be playing this for 2.5 hours every Saturday night. In addition, and then that's how I really got started playing. Like he would show me the chords and get started picking out Little Liza Jane. But it was when we would have the every night jam session at our house, and he would go, "Take it, Rhonda." And you're like, I
don't know what to do.
Take it. I don't know what I'm taking. So I finally started picking out songs, listening to records, slowing them down, learning the solos. So when he said, "Take it, Rhonda," there was an expectation, and so that's how I actually started playing. And then he would go at 12, I was 8 when I started playing the mandolin. At 12, he said, "Listen, the fiddle is tuned just like the mandolin, and it's time that you started playing that." So he got me started off on Boil the Cabbage Down. And from that, once again, then there became that expectation. "Take it, Rhonda." Well, if I can pick out a tune on the mandolin, I just got to figure out the bowing part and figure out it on the fiddle. Took different phases with banjo, guitar. I started playing guitar quite by necessity. Pretty much everything else I do in my life, but I started writing songs. So.
Well, you just never know where life's going to lead. You may learn another instrument,
But Dad played everything, and he thought everyone should play everything else too. So he would get it started, and then we had to take it from there.
Well, you mentioned your family's show. Is it east of Queen City? Is that correct?
West.
West, okay.
It's 3 miles west of Queen City, Missouri, on Route W.
Yeah.
And mom and dad had Dad bought these 63 acres because he wanted, his dream was to host his own festival. And I think this would have been number 33 had it happened.
And so every year your family's involved in putting it on, and of course you probably all perform. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. Well, we were supposed to. Yes. My brother Brian, he's a chief financial officer up in Chicago for an animal pharmaceutical company, and he always takes off that week. He's a great singer, but he really directs everything and puts together the state. I mean, constantly, from hauling the trash to parking campers to playing the shows and just holding it all together. Mom bakes homemade pies all through the festival, so she runs the Carolyn's Canteen or Cook Shack or whatever it is. And my band usually plays. Darren's band usually plays, but it will not be held this year.
You're probably, speaking of Darren, the few siblings acts that are both members of the Opry, correct? You have Crystal Gayle, Loretta.
That's some research we need to do. We think we might be the only brother and sister. Loretta Lynn.
Yeah,
her sister are separate Opry members. And they said there's been families that have been members, like the Whites. But the question is, has there ever been a brother and sister from separate groups to hold separate Opry memberships? So,
well, that's interesting.
That's your homework.
All right, I'm gonna research that. That's interesting.
I
Well, I'm sure
actually
you
tried to
were.
Google it, but I couldn't really come. It must be. I will have to ask the Opry, I guess, but I couldn't come up with
Yeah,
anything.
that sounds like a Ron Harmon question. He
Oh
knows
yeah,
all the
I
good
think
stuff.
so.
Well, let's talk about
Yes.
your brother. I'm sure you were just as excited when he became a member of the Opry, just to have a family member that, I bet your mom's just about to bust with pride to have two
Oh
children.
my dad would have been so. I mean, we listened to the Opry every time it was on. You know, we
Yeah.
grew up every morning. He would turn WSM on to listen to the Martha White show. So
Uh-huh.
WSM Nashville was a part of our house, even though you don't really think about it until, wow, we listen to this every morning. We listen to the Opry, and that's basically we learned our songs. My dad learned to play the banjo from listening to the Opry. He tunes his banjo to A, and he didn't because he couldn't see them. They have a
Yeah.
capo and they were tuned to G, and it worked out because we sing so high, so that was good. But it's an oddity because most people tune their banjo to G, and he didn't.
Was he listening to Uncle Dave Macon
He was
play
listening to
the
Earl Scruggs.
Earl Scruggs? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was
I
listening
remember.
to Flatt and Scruggs is who he was listening to.
Wow.
And figuring
Well,
out just from a lot of the songs too, like we'll sing some songs that, like from my dad, he would hear them on the radio and try to memorize it or have mom write it down. And then
uh-huh.
nowadays I sing it, like the song Where No Cabins Fall, he got from the Chuck Wagon Gang by listening to, is it Del Rio, Texas, I think, or Shreveport,
Oh,
Louisiana. He'd listen to the radio, late night radio. And so he would remember these songs. Well, he totally does not have we didn't have the titles right. Now I say, oh, somebody would sing the song. It's like, oh, I know that song. It's called this. And they're like, no, it's
no.
not called that. Or that's not the right words. Mickey and I tried to sing some songs, his family. Well, it's because he learned all of this just from listening to the radio.
I've been so excited to see Bobby Bones hosting, some television segments of the Opry again, so that another generation grows up seeing it on television or hearing it, because it's been such a
Yes.
unifying force within families for so long. So I'm glad to hear you share that. Now, you've been talking about your family being involved in music. I know your girls are, of course, both musical.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about them? And of course, you've got Outlaws and In-Laws now in your band. Talk a little bit about their musical careers.
Well, I mean, Sally was traveling with us, I guess, up until this year, and she, carries on the tradition. I think that's what she aspires to perform. She's actually looking to, and I don't know if this is public knowledge, so if not, keep this here. But I
Okay.
think she is looking to. There's a position opening in the Navy band.
Oh,
And she aspires to do her own thing and maybe perhaps do that. So she's getting really fit for that. And then Tinsel's a great bass player. She plays upright bass and a singer, but that's something that she does in church, but not necessarily professionally. She and Sally both had a group when they were in college called The Next Best Thing.
mm-hmm.
And in fact, the guy that was in their band, Brent Burke, who used to be in my band, was in their band. So that's how I met him.
Now, he was your dobro player, is that
My
correct?
dobro player. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And then Sally married your fiddle player? Was it Hunter?
Well, she was. They're not married anymore.
Oh, I'm behind on the times. Sorry
Well,
about that.
I don't think. Yeah, that's all right. No, they're
Um,
not married. Hunter is still in the band though. He's still my fiddle player.
Okay.
He's been in the group. This is his 19th year, so he's just like a member of the family too.
I was going to say, you just claim him anyways. There you go.
That's right. That's right.
Let's talk about your long-term relationship with Silver Dollar City. I know when you, of course, were inducted into the Missouri Walk of Fame, D.A. Calloway came and introduced you because you had such a heritage there and continue to perform there for Bluegrass and Barbecue. Can you talk about Silver Dollar City and its influence on your musical career?
Oh my goodness. I have performed at Silver Dollar City for as long as I can remember. What a wonderful place for my father to teach us, because now we were staff musicians at one time and we played 5 days a week. We played Monday through Friday, 5 1-hour shows per day.
Oh, wow.
And then on Friday night, we would drive to a festival. Saturday, Sunday, we would play a bluegrass festival. Sunday night, we drove back, and Monday morning at 8 a.m., we were playing back at Silver Dollar City.
Wow.
And this is where Darren, you know, I remember one time he said, I'm going to take a fiddle break. And my dad said, you don't know how to play the fiddle. And he said, yes, I do. And right at the time for the solo, he ran up to the front and took the fiddle break. And it's like, who is this? And what he was just always, one weekend he said, I'm going to be the guitar player. But see this, we never saw him pick up those instruments ever. So
Wow.
Darren has this natural gift. He is one of the greatest harmony singers, but he has a natural gift to play the instruments, and he just picked them up just naturally. And
Wow.
but Silver Dollar City is so special, and I'm so glad it's like a homecoming each time I get to go back to Silver Dollar City and perform. We're really going to miss that this year, performing there. I hope maybe we can figure out, maybe we can don't they have a lot of Christmas festivities? So maybe
Yes,
I'll get
right.
to go down and do something around the Christmas shows that they have.
Yeah. Well, it's very evident that those folks who've been going to Silver Dollar City for years feel the same way about you coming there every year. I've stood in one of those lines that go clear up the hills waiting to see your show. So I think that's great. And DA, I know, has been a good friend to your family for a long time. And
he is, oh yes, a wonderful
what a talented
friend.
man.
He really is. Oh, and I love watching him on Facebook each day. I don't know if he's always either playing a song, building a garden, or telling a joke. I love it. What a wonderful man that he is. I think he's a great example he is of encouraging others and building others up.
Sure.
You know, no matter where you are in life or whatever, he just always gives an encouraging word. So what a wonderful mentor he is.
Well, and he gave a great introduction when you were inducted into the Walk of Fame, and I know it was very heartfelt.
Yeah,
that's great.
He was so kind to do that.
I know you are, of course, famous for bluegrass music, but you've kind of dabbled in other musical worlds as well and genres. Did you do a country album at one time?
I did a couple of country albums back in the 90s. You know, the 90s country. I did the first one was, they were both on Giant Records. And the first one was called Written in the Stars, and the second was called Trouble Free. I look at that as my musical college years. I got to go to Nashville, learn from the best of the best. I was produced by James Stroud and Richard Landis and Garth Fundis. And so I met all these amazing people, and to learn the production side of it. I was managed by Jack McFadden, who was at the time, he was the manager for Buck Owens back in the Hee Haw days. He was also the manager for Billy Ray Cyrus back when he hit with Achy Breaky Heart. So I got to watch all of this, and the Stan Barnett, who was the booking side of Jack McFadden's agency, writing, publishing. It was 5 years of learning all of this, and then going, what am I going to do with my life? You know, where am I going to continue to record country music, or what am I going to do? And that's where it was for a long time. Even when I put together a group of my friends, and that's when we got Rhonda and the Rage, Rhonda, Alan, Joey, and Earl, and all Missouri boys, and did a few festivals. And that's when things kind of started, they started coming together. And I found I was in the right place at the right time, and got to utilize, I had the best of both worlds, getting to utilize the things I had learned in country music, of the business and all of that, but yet into something that was so natural and that I love so much and was so passionate about. It's wonderful how all of that came together.
Well, and you mentioned the business, learning the business. Probably a lot of our listeners don't know. Didn't you major in accounting?
I did.
See, that was smart. You were learning business all the way around, and on all.
I actually used that. You're right. I use that a lot.
Yeah, sure. Now, I am also, speaking of different genres of music, you did a DVD of gospel music. Was it in Green Top?
It was a CD. Yes. Yes.
CD.
Yeah. Sunday Morning Singing Live. It's a live CD.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to my home church in Green Top, and when we recorded that.
And tell us about that experience of going back home and recording that.
Well, that was a tremendous oversight on my part, because the church is over 100 years old.
Sure.
And there was several, I mean, it was almost like the devil was trying to get, I would always wanted to do a gospel album when I was on Rounder Records. And back then, and they said, when you do a gospel record, that means your career is over. And I'm like, so they wouldn't really allow me to do that. Well, then it was 2010, And I started my own label, Upper Management Music. And that's when I said, I want to do this. Ended up doing Taken. And then I did an all duet project with Gene Watson, country music. And then the third album on there was this all gospel project. So we get there to do this. The church is over. It's June. It's during my festival, like the end of June, 1st of July. It is over 100 degrees.
Oh gosh.
And there is no air conditioning in the church. We never even thought about that. Well, a terrible storm had come through and it had wiped out all of the electricity. I had guests coming from all over, flying in. I had flights and guests and hotels and all of this expense wrapped up into this recording. Like I say, the devil was trying his best to stop it. Do you know, wonderful friends, electricians, they basically stood back. They said, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Well, there's no electricity. We called everywhere. There was not a single generator available anywhere within county after county. There was no one with electricity. We couldn't even move to another place because nobody had electricity. Well, they came up with a plan. They went and bought $1,500 in wires. And they wired this from our bus generator. And they ran it through the front of the church, into the church. They wired everything up. In the middle of the recording, the lights come on. In fact, in the middle of a song, all of a sudden the lights come on.
Wow.
So it was quite an adventure. Do you know that CD has been the best-selling CD that for someone to say once you do a gospel album that your career is over, that one continues to sell more over any other project I have ever made.
See, you knew your gut instinct.
I just knew I wanted to do it. I didn't really know that, but yeah. And that's, you know what, I do pretty much everything by feel like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's why you've been successful. Follow your heart, whether it's stay in Missouri or whatever it is, you know. You mentioned your collaborations with Gene Watson and earlier about singing one of Jeannie Seeley's songs. Can you talk about working some of your musical collaborations with other artists?
Well, love singing with Gene. You know, that was an unexpected. Singing with him for the very first time we did together again. I went to his show in Nashville. Didn't get to meet him because his line was so long left. But his manager said, "Hey, he's recording. We want you to sing on there." So they ended up. I went to sing harmony, and they said, "Just sing it from the top all the way down." And they turned it into a duet, which he didn't expect, nor did I. Still never met until the Opry called and said he was debuting his album. And they said, "We want you to come to Nashville and sing this duet with him on the live TV portion of the Opry." I get to Kansas City to the airport and the flight is delayed. I literally land as that they're going on TV. That song has started off and I walk in the door and they allowed me to go out and sing that. That's the first time I ever met the guy, was singing in the circle on the stage of the Opry. So once again, it's just always, you know what? It's always an adventure with what we do, it seems like. And then I also did an all duet project with Mr. Daryl Singletary.
Yes.
And, and then he passed February 12th of 2018, I believe it. Yes, 2018. And so I've been very fortunate to sing with some of the greatest performers in country music.
And you and Daryl did some George Jones, Tammy Wynette duets, correct?
We
Golden
did,
Ring
indeed.
and One, and yeah, good stuff. Any other musical collaborations you wanted to mention? Have you worked with Dolly Parton or?
I have worked with Dolly. I guess I have. And in 2005, I had a life-threatening illness and I went into the hospital in Columbia, did not expect to live. And when I got home, I came home to finding Dolly Parton standing in my living room. And I was moved to tears to know her, for her to drive all the way from Nashville or to be driven to all that way in her bus. But she said, "I had to come make sure you were okay myself." She did not leave that and she could have called, she'd have done whatever, but she made the trip up there and is such a dear friend. And what a mentor she is. I've been very fortunate to know some wonderful people to guide you through the business and guide you through life. She, to me, is a great mentor just in life, in every aspect.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we often hear country music artists especially speak about the bond within the music industry in Nashville, and especially from the Opry family. Can you
Oh,
talk
yes.
about that? I mean, that's a great example, but can you tell us a little bit more about that you've seen in action?
Well, it's just getting to know these. I mean, I grew up in Greentop, Missouri. What are the chances of getting to meet Dolly Parton? What are the chances of Dolly Parton coming there and standing by the Greentop sign? She got a picture. You can probably Google Dolly Parton, Greentop, Missouri, and there she is by the Greentop sign. But
Oh,
to the kindness that she exudes, just like that. Jeannie Seeley, I mean, she's become such a dear friend. She wrote a song called "Like I Could." That's my latest single, and she didn't
mhm.
expect me to record it, and I didn't expect to record that, but she started singing it to me, and I said, I mean, it was one of those things. I love this. I love this song. Well, and we were friends before. We sailed on the Country's Family Reunion cruises, the Larry's Country Diner cruise, and we had known each other from that. And she's, always been very friendly. But getting to record that song has really, our friendship has grown. And to have somebody like that to be such a mentor, just when she invited me to be a member of the Opry, I got phone calls, I got texts. Mark Wills was the very first one. He called me twice within 5 minutes. He said, I am so excited and I want to be there. And just, there are
Oh,
people who are excited for you.
sure.
A text from Marty Stewart, from Alison Krauss, all of these wonderful people. Gene Watson, calls, and that, like I said, he said, boy, you didn't let me, because he just was invited in January. He was literally just
Yeah.
made a member, I think, in March.
Wow. Well, there's been some great additions to the Opry membership. Yourself, you mentioned Gene Watson. Didn't seem like it was that long ago. Crystal Gale was
Right.
invited. There's been some great additions that were long overdue. And you were mentioning Jeannie Seeley. She's overdue for the Hall of Fame. I hope that
Yes,
she
she
finally
is.
makes the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. We're
That's
going to have to become an advocate for her now, huh?
Yes, yeah. I got to start a mission to get Jeannie Seeley in the Hall of Fame. Well, you
I
look at
was
the
reading
late.
too. Do you know that Kitty Wells, her Opry membership was suspended? To me, she should be reinstated.
Well, certainly. I didn't know
She,
that. Why?
yes, well, I think because, there used to be a rule, and I'm assuming I haven't been given the rules yet, but there used to be a rule if you could not make so many appearances on there, that
Yeah.
your Opry membership was suspended. And I think I'm pretty safe in saying that's probably why. Her family toured more than anybody else that I know. And so
Wow.
to me, someone needs to reinstate her membership, because, she was the queen of country music. And I mean, I went to her 90th birthday party.
Yeah.
I could not stop crying. I don't know. I was overwhelmed with emotion. And I mean, I blubbered all over her. She's probably looking at me like, what is your problem? But
Well,
I couldn't help it.
the queen of bluegrass music is going to have to lobby for the queen of country music to get her Opry membership reinstated. There
I
you
think
go.
so. I think so.
The ladies of the Opry voice seem to have a strong bond. I remember Dolly Parton used to host television shows, and you'd see them together with Peter Davis and Kitty Wells and Jan Howard and Jeannie Pruitt, all that group of women, and they seem to have a very special bond. So
Yes.
you're belonging to a very unique club of ladies now.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm very excited about that.
You've talked about these musical collaborations, but could you identify anybody throughout the history of music in your life that, besides family, who has really been a strong influence and a mentor that you always looked up to?
Oh, without question, the group that we love, that we listen to, we tried to emulate, and I am just stunned every time I think about they are friends now, and I get actual texts and email from them. That's the Osborne brothers, Bobby and Sonny Osborne.
Yeah.
We love their music and love their singing and their instrumentation, their musical arrangements, their harmony arrangement. We loved everything about them.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I mean, they are so special, and Sonny continues to mentor me, or to send me messages, or how are you, or to offer advice, in whatever time. Like, he called me or texted me or something, or email, I don't know, he does all three, but about this time where we are, and how the band, and I said, well, the band is on salary and I'm still paying them. He goes, I expected that of you. It's like, how sweet is he,
Yeah. Wow. I'm sure that was really an excitement when you finally were able to develop a friendship with them. That's a
Oh,
wonderful.
he and Bobby both. It's just so special because we love them so much. All of these people, they're people I grew up listening to. What are the chances, to even meet
You
them,
know,
let alone Bobby Bobby Osborne sends me an email and he'll go, "How's my little all-American bluegrass girl?" And he melts my heart.
there you go. I first heard the Osborne brothers at Starvey Creek. And I
Oh
know
yeah,
you've had a great relationship with Starvey Creek as well.
absolutely. Love going to
Would you like,
Conway.
yeah, would you like to mention anything about your time there with the Day family or anything?
Yes, well, you know what? I'm just hoping that festival continues. It's in September, so I think we got a pretty good chance. And it's outside. See, I think bluegrass music is going to be perfect at this time. We can go outside. We can still practice the distancing. We don't have to put our chairs up really close together, but we can still spread out. We're outside, enjoy the fresh air, and still get to fellowship together and enjoy the music.
Certainly. So, Rhonda, you've now moved musical chain. Since that you, I'm sure as a young artist, were on your wish list. What's on your plan now? I mean, maybe the Hall of Fame someday.
You know what? Yes, that would be
No?
fun. Yeah, but they always say, you need to write a book or the Hall of Fame. It's like, I feel like I'm too busy living it right now to
Yeah.
go for something like that. I don't feel like I'm
Sure.
old enough or whatever, but although I probably am.
Well,
I'm
no.
I hope that I'm still in the middle of my career here.
Well, but now that they've broken up the Hall of Fame into different categories, I think we always think to reach the Hall of Fame, you need a senior artist. But, now
Right.
they have different categories, so you just
Well,
never know.
I guess I was thinking of the Bluegrass Hall of Fame that's in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Yeah.
But you know
sure.
what? I'm going to have to aspire for both of those now.
If you're going to go all out, right?
That's right.
There you go.
I believe
That's
Mac
right.
Wiseman. Mac Wiseman was a member of both of them. So.
Yeah, Mac Wiseman. What did you get Mac at all or get him?
Oh, yes. One of the last projects that we have was filmed and recorded. It's on Blu-ray, DVD, and CD. It's called Live at the Ryman, and it was with Bobby and Sonny Osborne, Jesse McReynolds, and it was the final performances of Mac Wiseman. So it is so special.
Wow.
Very,
It's
very
kind of a
special.
night of legends.
Yes, it was Bluegrass
Wow.
Legends. And then on the Blu-ray, they couldn't get this on the DVD, but on the Blu-ray, we got to go to Mac's house. And if you've never been to his house, just seeing his living room in itself is pretty amazing. But Bobby, Sonny, Jesse, Mac, and we all sat in his living room, and they were just visiting, they were talking about the old days and how they started singing and how they found Rocky Top and picked their instrument. It was so interesting. And anyway, that's on the Blu-ray only.
Did you ever get to work with Bill Monroe?
Oh yes, my family played many shows with Bill. Our first time I ever saw him was in Knob Noster, Missouri. There used to be
Really?
the biggest festival in Missouri was in Knob Noster. And we went there. I think the first time we were there, we'll have to trace back once again and do some math, but I think I was 11. But we were there 11, 12, 13. I remember I was there on my 13th birthday, and it was on the 13th of July, and I believe it was a Friday the 13th, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Look back on those years. But and it was we got in the band contest, and we ended up winning that, and we got booked there every year after. But the first time we were there, and this had to be a lot of an effort for my dad, because my dad walked with a cane. He had broke his neck when I was 2 in a car wreck, and gained his mobility by using a cane. And he walked me down behind the stage before Bill Monroe's performance. Bill was back there by himself too. I'm thinking now, it's like, where was his band? Why was he back there by himself? He was back there with his mandolin, and my dad talked to him, and I got a picture standing with Bill Monroe. I got to find that picture too.
Wow.
But my dad had to have taken that because it was just the 3 of us. And I can't tell you another time that my dad would have made such an effort to, number one, walk. This was down a steep hill behind stage. He would have taken me down there, and he would have taken the picture. So I know that was very important to him. Pretty
You need to
special.
save that for the book.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
picture for the book.
Yeah.
Well, I know your time's precious, and I don't mean to talk your leg off, but one final question. You mentioned some greats in bluegrass music, the Osborne brothers, Jim and Jesse, Bill Monroe, you can name lots of men.
Right.
Did you ever think as a woman that you would be considered a bluegrass legend? I mean,
I still feel like I'm that 15-year-old girl running around the festivals, staying up all night jamming, getting up playing the Sunday morning gospel show. We went from a station wagon to a pickup camper to a pull-type camper to a motorhome till finally a bus. It's pretty hard to believe, growing up
living
in
the
that
dream.
tiny town. I really am. I continue to do so. And I'm so, I hope I can always feel that way and keep that. There's a humbleness, I think, that is very important, that God commands of us to remain humble.
Sure.
And so I think that's, I always think about that, and I just feel very blessed and very thankful.
And I'll say this on behalf of your fans. I think the humbleness of your heart is what makes you so enduring to all of our hearts. Because I could meet you on the street or in a barbecue joint, and you're the same person as you would be on the stage of the Opry. And so, Rhonda, thank you for giving us your time. Thank you for your special connection to the Cherry Blossom Festival. And now that you're almost neighbors, we hope to see you there in the future.
I hope to get there. In fact, I was thinking this would be the one year I could get there because we're off the road.
Of course,
We'll make it again sometime.
We'll take a rain check.
All right.
Good to see you, my friend. You take care.
Thank you so much. Blessings. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. In closing, we'd like to thank all of you again for watching, and we'd like to encourage you to stay connected to the Cherry Blossom Festival through our Facebook page and website. Our Facebook page is Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival in Marshfield, Mo, and our website is cherryblossomfest.com. There you'll find more panels and interviews and pictures representing the best of American history. And we hope to see all of you here in Marshfield next year as we celebrate the 15th Cherry Blossom Festival.